This is Believe in Vikings. I am Dustin Baker. I'm here with Bryant McKinnie, Sal Spice, and Raun. The crew, it's Wednesday night. We have probably one of the most change-oriented episodes that we've ever had, mainly because the QB1 has signed for a fat contract with the Falcons, which he claims was structure over money, which I don't quite understand. But then we have 3 new defensive starters, a new kicker, a new running back, and we're going to get into all of it. Raun, I'm going to start with you, sir. So Cousins is gone, probably not coming back. He sounds like he's going to retire a Falcon. The Vikings, in the meantime, signed a quintessential bridge quarterback in Sam Darnold, and we think, and we'll be pissed if not, we think there is a new rookie quarterback on the way. So tell me your general sentiment and emotion about the Cousins exit, the Darnold entry, and the plan, presumably, of a quarterback in April.
Well, I think overall, like the way that the contract that Kirk received, the Vikings obviously weren't going to match that. So I'm not even debating that we should have brought him back at 4 years. Now I will debate the strategy. I feel like Kwesi, put himself against the wall because now you have to be right in a draft where the top 3 teams, picking 1, 2, and 3, all need quarterbacks and are all likely to take quarterbacks. We are going to be the team that either has to get rid of a lot to move up one way or another to get the guy that you want, or we're going to have to settle for a guy, or you're going to be reaching on someone. So that concerns me. The Darnold part, I just can't stand that. I mean, that to me is the 35W bridge all over again. Like, if you're going to have a bridge quarterback, we had that in Nick Mullins. Sam Darnold is not better in any way than Nick Mullins is, other than the fact that he was the number 4 overall pick, which was a bust. So regardless of salary, whatever, I don't care about that. I'd rather see the rookie who, if they don't take a rookie in the first round, then we got further discussions. But the fact that everyone in the world now knows that we are taking a quarterback, it's just a matter of, you have to get it right. Now, it doesn't mean that if you get the 5th one that it's wrong, because we've seen guys, Mahomes obviously was the 3rd off the board, and other guys seem to work. But they have to be right, and they gave themselves zero leeway in that regard. So that's the concerning part I have, is you go from, yes, the optimism is great, like there's guys out there, but you're now competing with other teams that need quarterbacks and want quarterbacks, and are we going to end up with Ponder, or are we going to end up finding the guy that that they deem is their answer at the right value that they need? Because keep in mind, if they do want to get their guy, we're going to be mortgaging draft picks in the future for that. So there goes the retooling everything else around the team on the rookie quarterback. It's so they put all their eggs in one basket, and I'm hoping it works out. I trust their analysis, but so far Kwesi's analysis of draft picks hasn't really been a shining light, so to speak.
I've been elated about this offseason these last 3 days. The moment they lost to the Giants in the postseason was my jumping off point that the Cousins era should wind down, mainly because age was the new factor. And I'm very glad they didn't offer the 4 years, $180 million. And I don't have a lot of reservations about the Vikings needing a quarterback because, in my opinion, even if they kept Kirk, I wanted them to trade up for Drake May. So it's going to cost a lot no matter what. So I don't quite have that. I don't like bridge quarterbacks at all. I'm hoping if it's McCarthy or Drake May, I'm hoping they just start the guy and we'll take our lumps. But that decision's not up to me. So Sam Darnold, if we must, I guess I'll get on board with it. That's me, though. Bryant, what about you? This is the Cousins after party. Do you like the move to move on?
I mean, I do. And I mean, at this point, I don't know how much more they expected to get from Cousins. Is he how is he, 36?
He'll be 36 in a few months.
Right. So if you had him in his really good, solid years and we couldn't get over the hump, I don't see how later on the career all of a sudden it's going to happen. So I'm always open to change after a while. I felt like if anything, he would have stayed maybe 1 year and they would have made the transition within that year. But I mean, it's just now you're just forced to kind of move forward fast just a little bit, but that's okay. Get you a younger guy and start, getting him some experience and going out here and just starting a new regime, a new era. You had the whole new general manager and everything. Now you got to know a whole new quarterback. So now it's a whole new era.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see. Sally, I got this for you. So last year we both were on record saying it was time to draft a quarterback and let him sit for a year. Realistically, that could have been Will Levis. So I guess Hendon Hooker, if you want to go that deep into it. In 2022, if they would have done that, they would have ended up with Desmond Ridder or Kenny Pickett or Matt Corral, kind of nothing burgers in retrospect. So now they're in a spot where they need to go draft a quarterback. Knowing that they have to do that, plus Cousins gone, where are you at? What's your emotions?
Okay, well, my primary emotions are that I'm very offended, first of all, that I wasn't allowed to speak first because I haven't been on this show for months.
Usually you get mad when you have to talk first.
No, number two, I have been the most adamant about Kirk Cousins since 2019, especially on this show when no one else has ever agreed with me. And you're going to ask Raun what he thinks, and then I get a draft question?
No.
When I hate the draft, like,
it's not a draft question.
You must have not wanted me back on this show at all. So obviously I'm elated. I'm so relieved that we're not doing Cousins Watch again. I cannot be more excited that these 6 years, this era is done. You guys know every single offseason, I am so disappointed by the extensions, and we're always in the same place. 2 playoff appearances, 1 win in 6 years. So I don't think that they could have matched that 4-year money guaranteed anyway, but I think Kirk made it very easy for them to make that decision. Now with that, I know I'm not answering your question at all, but I'm talking about what I need to talk about.
I told you to give me your emotion on it.
Did you? I thought you were saying what their draft.
You'll watch it back and you'll see.
Okay, well, I'm just very passionate about this. Maybe I heard you talking about the draft, what position they're in, et cetera, et cetera. Now, as far as the Sam Darnold situation goes, not my preference. They obviously do need a bridge quarterback. And listen, it's not a Donovan McNabb situation, so could be worse. However, I wish if that's what they were going to do, they would get someone with more experience, maybe like an Andy Dalton type who can be more of a mentor, even though, Andy Dalton, has he had that much success? No, not necessarily. But he's been in the league for so long. He's been exposed to so many different systems, and he has the maturity level, I think, to be more of a mentor than a Sam Darnold to a rookie quarterback. So it wasn't my favorite signing, for sure. But I'm so happy. This is the most excited I've been in so long. And yeah, now we have a chance to do something.
Did Harrison Smith's return today make it a little sweeter, or are you ready to move on from him as well?
No, I mean, I would have been okay with it either way. Of course, I would prefer that he stays and retires with the Vikings. But if he were to find a deal out there that were better for him, I mean, I totally would understand that business decision and thank him for his service. So it would have been a little bit of a bummer, but I think we all have been mentally prepared for that possibly happening for a couple years now.
Do you share any of Ron's hesitation about the Vikings? Now everybody knows they're going to have to draft a quarterback. Does that get on your nerves at all?
I mean, I think everybody knew that from the get-go. Like, people probably knew that last year and they didn't do it. So I don't think, I mean, even if they would have been able to get Cousins for 2 years or something again, inevitably they got to get a quarterback. So I don't think it would really blow anyone's mind that that's what they're looking for. Maybe now they might have to give up a little bit more than they would have because people know how desperate they are going to be now, but I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference.
They've basically got to stay ahead or get ahead of the Raiders, Broncos, maybe the Saints. That's the posturing. Realistically, probably just the Broncos because they're at 12. The Raiders might just enjoy Gardner Minshew. And then I don't know if the Saints would spend their first on a quarterback. So if you like J.J. McCarthy, things are trending up because there's a really good chance that the Chargers would do business at number 5 with the Vikings rather than the Broncos because that's their division rival. So if you're a McCarthy person, today is a good day. Brian, I want to ask you this. I've been thinking about this since the Cousins thing happened. No matter what fans think of Cousins, the players adored the man. Every time I opened Twitter or the internet in the past 2 months, it was a new player saying how much they love Kirk and want him back.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's gone, Bryant. So would you say, players probably understand him going after the maximum dollars and structure.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, when you start a new era like this, is it a big damn deal? Or is there going to be anybody that misses Kirk, or do you just move forward with whoever they draft?
I mean, they'll miss him for a little bit for the first couple practices, but you move on.
Okay.
Because it's just you just move on. And then now you have to get comfortable with whoever's next to the line behind Kirk. But for him, it's probably more of a change, just because he has to learn a new system and new environment, everything like that at the beginning. But I'm pretty sure he'll be fine as well.
Okay. Yeah, he's got a lot of weapons that he'll have on offense to work with, and fantasy football managers can rejoice because Kyle Pitts, Drake London, those guys should be finally unlocked after a couple years of sorrow. But let's talk about the defense and some of these other free agency moves. Ron, the Vikings signed Blake Cashman, Eden Prairie native, Jonathan Greenard, who I don't think anybody had on their target list in terms of feasibility in getting them. And then Andrew Van Ginkel for an incredibly valuable deal, 2 years, $20 million. Two guys that replaced Danielle Hunter, who signed with his hometown Texans. So, Ron, outside of any anxiety you might have about the draft and a quarterback, how do you like the defensive signings in free agency?
I mean, I like what they've done. Obviously, Van Ginkel's a guy that when you watch, the Dolphins, he was always around the ball, always made plays, and he's a perfect kind of 3-4 outside guy where he's not just strictly a pass rusher, although he is good at rushing the passer, but he does everything well. So, that part. I think bodes well in Brian Flores' defense. And then Greenard or Greenard, however he pronounces it, he's a guy that, based on the metrics, I mean, Kwesi's going back to what he's talked about all along, the analytics, like he has a really good pass rush rate. In limited pass rush snaps, he was effective. So much like last year when they added, Byron Murphy, like it's a guy that is kind of on the rise. I feel like as far as hitting that sweet spot of 26 years old, hasn't had a full opportunity to be what Danielle Hunter was, but he's effective in pass rush situations, as well as he defends the run well as a 3-4 outside linebacker. So I like those moves, and obviously Cashman was even coming out of the U of M, he was always a very speedy guy. He just had injury concerns when he was with the Jets, and last year he became one of the best coverage linebackers in the league. So with him and Ivan Pace manning that middle, I mean, what's not to like with that, except for the fact that they haven't addressed the defensive front. So we may have just 4 linebackers just getting 5 offensive linemen pinned on them every time. So but they're spending their money, I think, wisely and bringing in guys that are going to help. And then most importantly, with what they're doing, they're not hamstringing themselves in the future, other than draft capital and having to be right at quarterback. They're setting themselves up for a nice offseason next year, while this season's going to be horseshit, if Sam Darnold's the quarterback. But Kwesi's putting his stamp on the team, and he's turning that leaf, which that part I'm fine with. I have zero issue with him taking the team and transforming it. So now we just need to be right, and that'll be the main concern. If he drafts a guy that's a 10-year starter plus, we'll look back at the draft picks and whatever and not care. But next offseason is going to be fun with the cap space, and we'll see what they continue to do the next few weeks, month leading into the draft.
Yeah, if they do conduct a splashy trade that involves 3 high round picks or whatever it may be, it's a good offseason to do it next year because they're scheduled to have about $130 million to spend, which will reduce a little bit when Justin Jefferson's extended, but it will be by far the most cap space we've ever dreamed of. And if there was ever an offseason not to have draft picks, it's the next one, because you're going to have like a top 5 amount of dollars to spend. So we shall see. What about you, Sally, on these defensive signings? They're all starters, and they're all longer than 1 year. Do you like the vision for the defense? I'm guessing you want a defensive tackle like the rest of us, but do you like the vision in general?
Well, I think there's still time to hopefully get one of those some way. I love them. And like you said, I think last year around this time when we talked about it, the free agents that they picked up were all kind of show me deals. They were guys coming off of injuries. They were short contracts, which obviously Davenport, left and went to Detroit. So, it's kind of different than what we were talking about last year. So I think they did get more quality pickups on the defense. And, Brian Flores has had another year here to, really fine tune his system and know who he wants and who's going to fit in where he needs. So I'm excited about it.
Would you have preferred Hunter back at 25 mil and then maybe want him, or do you enjoy Greenard and Van Ginkel basically for the price of Hunter with about $5 extra million?
I mean, I love Danielle Hunter. He's always been one of my favorite players, and I think that it's kind of admirable how he really hasn't tested the market his whole career, and he's taken these little, 1 year, 2 year deals. Hey, and we'll make it up to your next contract and stuff like that. I mean, he could have left a long time ago and gotten a big contract and paid a while years ago, because he just seems like he kept being in that situation. So I don't blame him for wanting to go. But I think I would rather have more players, more bodies than, just Danielle, especially because what we're probably looking at this season isn't going to be competing for a division or anything like that. Yeah,
for that to happen, we'd either need a Sam Darnold reclamation like Baker Mayfield almost, or Drake May, JJ McCarthy to play like CJ Stroud. And then you'd be right in the thick of it. But either one of those things is kind of a long shot.
And you need the rest of the division to, regress, which I think they're only improving, if anything.
I agree. There was that Saturday, a wild card Saturday, where the Packers stomped the Cowboys. We knew the Bears had the first overall pick. The Lions had won their playoff game. It was like, all right, well, everything has moved up because I think that was the moment we realized Jordan Love could be for real. But yeah, all right.
How many years did Danielle get in his new contract? I'm not up on that.
2, I think. He got like 2 and
only
49. 2 and 49 million. Yeah, he's going to be 30, which isn't like a running back where you're like, oh God, but I think and he's got, I know it's a dirty word in Minnesota, but he had the injury history. He missed 1.5 years, and I think other general managers just want to make sure before they hand him.
He's been back for a while, at least 2 years, hasn't he?
Yeah, he was really healthy these last 2 seasons. I think he just never feels like he's that old. And so I think
because he was a baby.
I think the idea is most of his contract was guaranteed, so he's got that going for him. But yeah, he gets to go home in Houston. That's where he's from. And I kind of thought that one might happen because a lot of times those hometown connections matter. We thought Eric Kendricks was going to stay in California today with the 49ers, but he bolted back for Zimmer and the Cowboys on a side note. All right. Cool. The other big thing that happened this week, Ron, was Tuesday morning. Aaron Jones is going to be the running back. There's always one Packer that defects from Wisconsin. And let's see, a few years ago, it was Vikings legend Bashaud Breeland. Before that, it was Adarius Smith and Chandon Sullivan. Last year it was Dean Lowry. This year it's Aaron Jones. I did not think that they would spend decent amount of cash on a veteran running back, but they did. Aaron Jones to the Vikings. Ron, what say you?
I mean, Aaron Jones he's always been a thorn in our side. He's always been a very good player. And I know he'll be 30 in December. So like he's at that, crossroads of a running back where how much life he has left. But if you watch the latter part of last season, he was the reason the Packers were so good on offense. He was dominant, 100+ yards in every playoff game and every game down the stretch. And so I think he'll absolutely be a help. And the fact that it's $7 million and they saved 4.5 or so by releasing Madison. So it's really not much of a difference there. So you're instantly getting an upgrade. He can obviously pass protect and catch balls, which we're going to need a lot of with our quarterback situation. So a running back that can catch out of the backfield is going to be key. But, he's a guy that, at least for this year, he gives us a obviously immediate upgrade in the backfield. And, whenever you can upgrade any position, you have to take that opportunity.
Yeah, the knock on him is he's got a little bit of recent injury history, but that's what happens to running backs.
Even that, though, it's like hasn't missed that much time.
Yeah,
like last year he did, but
in most
years before,
compared to most running backs, he's right there. He's fine.
Right.
And I think that's the reason. I don't know why the Packers said sayonara and said hello to Josh Jacobs, but I think that would be the only thing that's wrong with him, because he looked like a machine in the last month of the season and in the postseason. Bryant, like I was talking about, there's always one guy recently who comes from the Packers to the Vikings, and you never personally did this, but in your experience, how much of it usually is it for a player to stick it to their old team? Is that overblown by us who talk and write about it, or is that real?
I think it's real. I think players, and I feel like he'll play extremely harder when he goes against the Packers too, just to show like that he was worth keeping or whatever. But players do that. I mean, look at Saquon Barkley. He just went to the Eagles. So like people do that. I guess just to show that I'm still good or capable of playing at a high level. So, and those will usually be like their better games or most prepared games that they play.
So it's a real thing, huh? I can continue thinking that.
Yeah, because I mean, if I would have played y'all, I would have.
Excuse me. Yeah, I hear you.
Whoever was across was going to get the best Bryant McKinnie that day. So
yeah. Sally, Aaron Jones to the Vikings. We loathed him for what, 6-7 seasons, and now we're gonna have him on the roster for at least 1 year. Do you like the move, spending what was it, $7 million on Aaron Jones?
Yeah, I mean, the money necessarily doesn't bother me. They did upgrade the position, which was obviously needed. I was also surprised though that they did spend the money, but I'm guessing they don't know really what's going to be going on in the past games, so they need some options there. However, I will say, touching on what you guys just said, I mean, remember how fired up Zadarius Smith was to play the Packers week 1, and that made a huge difference in that game. But with that being said, I used to always get so excited when former Packers would choose to come to the Vikings. I loved it. It was just great. However, now that I've had time to think about it over the years, Zadarius, that didn't really work out other than a couple weeks. One that always stands out to me is Greg Jennings. I remember Greg Jennings having this huge press conference, and, I thought, oh my God, he chose to leave Aaron Rodgers and come play for Christian Ponder. He must see something in Christian Ponder, right? Of course, he wouldn't choose to leave Aaron Rodgers. No, that couldn't have been, that completely didn't work out at all. Another one I think about is Darren Sharper. Okay, he chose to leave there. He came here. He was good. He was good here. But then look what happened. He went to the Saints and was a major contributor to the Bounty Gate program. So honestly, I just really wish we would leave those guys alone at this point. It really hasn't done anything other than Ryan Longwell. Ryan Longwell, that was success. Brett Favre, you could argue.
That was worth it. That was worth it.
Yeah, I think it was worth it.
It's worth it for Bryant.
That was the best record I had as a Viking.
Yeah, for Bryant, for sure worth it. For our mental health, I don't know. But for Bryant, I can totally see.
Yeah, Ryan Longwell is always the one that takes the cake for me, because that was the last time I think everybody trusted a kicker. I think we actually got to a point with Ryan Longwell where we trusted him. And to this day, I don't know, even if the Vikings traded for Justin Tucker tomorrow, I don't know that we would trust a kicker. It would take prolonged sample size.
Really?
Oh God, we're scarred. Like,
Well, didn't Justin Tucker miss in the playoffs, right? Was it against the Chiefs? He missed something that he would normally never miss.
Yeah.
And that afternoon was when like Travis Kelce and Mahomes were like bullying him and kicking his stuff around.
Yeah, they got to him.
So maybe he's ruined.
Another thing on Sam Darnold I wanted to mention, this kind of off topic, is yes, I know that spending up to $10 million on a bridge quarterback is not enjoyed by everybody, but you have to remember that the Vikings went through 3 quarterback injuries last year. Kirk Cousins for the half the season. If Nick Mullins hadn't been injured at the exact same time, he would have taken over, and there never would have been Dobbs mania. And then Jaron Hall got hurt like a half hour into his first start. So in addition to wanting a bridge quarterback, I view this move as we learned our lesson. We're not going to get down to nubbins once again at quarterback, because I actually think this front office and coaching staff believes that they're always going to have a competitive football team with the infrastructure that they have. And I don't think they ever want to have to panic trade for a Dobbs or get down to starting a 5th rounder. So I would caution people that, bemoan the Sam Darnold signing. Even I don't love it because I don't like Sam Darnold, at least not yet. But I understand it because of all the injuries that the quarterback room went through. All right,
the last
contract.
Yeah, sorry,
with
Sally.
Darnold, it's the when the Seahawks drafted Russell Wilson, what was that, 12 or whatever year that was? Remember that offseason they went out and they signed Matt Flynn to a monster deal after his gigantic week 16, 17 game, and Matt Flynn never saw time as a starter, so he got a bunch of money just to get cut the following year. So I'm all for, the depth and everything, but the perception of it where it's, you're bringing in Darnold. I think the more valuable piece, I know Sally, you touched on earlier with like Dalton or one of those type of guys, the more valuable piece is going to be Josh McCown as the quarterback coach or whatever his role is. That's a guy who's, been around. Obviously he was, on the Jets when they brought in Sam Darnold, so he knows how shitty he is. I don't think he's expecting anything more than that. But if nothing else, it gives us some great memes. The mono bit, the seeing ghosts. So I'm not banking on Darnold giving us any meaningful minutes whatsoever unless there's an injury. Then you have to throw him out there. So.
Well, I hope we record this and know what minutes that's at. That's at 27 minutes, so we got to replay it for Raun when
I'll stand on a guy that's his career average of yards per attempt is like 7, and he wasn't even good at USC. He threw a lot of interceptions. So,
well, I was gonna ask, does Sam have any money guaranteed?
I think like 9 of it is.
Yeah, most of it.
Then $1 million is incentive based or playing time.
Oh, okay. So say somebody were to become available like after a training camp cut or something, they're kind of have their wagon hitched to him.
Yeah, he'll be on the roster
because of
in
the
some
contract.
capacity. They can easily cut Mullins, and Jaron Hall can go to the practice squad. Even if they got really frisky and weird and traded for Justin Fields, who apparently has no market whatsoever, there's a room, but you'd probably get rid of Mullins and Hall before Darnold because you just put $9 million into him.
Well, Hall can always go on the practice squad. I don't think you're worried about anyone snagging up a 26-year-old off the practice
I ain't worried
squad.
about it.
All right, the last thing I got for you guys involves the future, whether it's the next couple days or if you want to speak broadly. But Sally, what's the one thing? One thing that comes to mind what you want to see the Vikings either do in the rest of free agency or the draft? It's as simple as a quarterback. What's the thing that for this to be a home run offseason? What do you want to see?
I want a quarterback. Remember how sad I was last year when I had to come on here, no quarterback. The year before that, I was probably sad about it too. I am just so excited to see what happens and who they get. And this is the most excited I've been for a draft ever. And I'm going to do my research now. I didn't do it ever before, or I didn't do it earlier because I don't want to get my hopes up again and again and again. And last year I did. And now, well, I guess there's a chance that I could get them up again, but I hope not.
No, I do have kind of a follow-up question. So obviously we're assuming that the top 3 picks are all quarterbacks and whether or not the Vikings are able to get in there, great, whatnot. But then would you guys rather give up future assets to move up and get a JJ McCarthy, or stay at 11 and reach on a Bo Nix, Michael Penix type? Like, which boat would make either or any of you guys happier? Just out of curiosity.
I mean, for me, and I don't know, I haven't been on Twitter much, so I don't know if Dustin, you've heard about this and agree, but I've been told from a person that I really trust, that Kwesi and Kev aren't really vibing right now. And so I hope obviously that that's not true. If it's Kevin's idea to wait for a guy around, that later in the first round, then I trust it, because I trust his opinion on quarterbacks way more than I trust Kwesi's opinion on it. So if it's Kevin that behind the scenes really wants to move up, and Kwesi's like, oh, hell no, we're not doing that, you got to figure out one of these guys to take. We're obviously probably never going to know that, but I trust whatever Kevin wants to do. So
my holy grail, just to get it out there, is to trade whatever it is to top the 3, or if he slides the 5, Drake May. I just want that as the baseline. If he's not available, I would advocate trading to number 5 for JJ McCarthy. I trust him. The thing with McCarthy is you'll probably see a lot more Sam Darnold than you'd like. I don't know that he'd be ready right away. So I'd rather have that than staying pat and drafting Michael Penix at 11. I don't want anything to do with Bo Nix. I think that is like the ponder pick this year. If you have to compare ponder to something, it would be him. I just don't think Nix is. See, all 6 of these guys, about half of them are not going to be good at all. One's going to be really good, and the 2 maybe starters for multiple years, and 3 of them are going to be garbage. And so we want the Vikings to avoid the garbage one, and I can almost guarantee you Bo Nix is going to be one of the garbage ones. So with that said, they better not pick him. But go ahead.
The other part with so for me, obviously the top 3 are the top 3. So I think McCarthy's going to end up being their guy. And for me, the reason why I think you would just roll with him, I think bringing Aaron Jones obviously helps with that. But this Vikings offense, except for the quarterback, this is a really good offense. They got the offensive tackles, they got the weapons on outside, Aaron Jones into the mix. So for me, the ideal guy is JJ, because, not because of the memes or whatnot, but the way his style of play at Michigan, where he takes a lot of heat because he handed the ball off a lot. They just dominated teams up front. But when he needed to make plays, he did. But it's the easiest transition to the NFL for any of these guys, even the Caleb Williams or whatever. But you're coming into a situation where there's talent, and then he doesn't have to do more than what he did in college. He doesn't have to, nor would he necessarily have to go out there and sling it 40 times, which he wasn't asked to do in college either. So I think transitionally it makes the most sense. And I, again, would rather see that than Darnold, pulling his Nick Mullins and, 360, throw it up and see who grabs it impression. So, but yeah, I'm with you on Bo Nix. I'm not a fan. I do like Penix, not in the first round at all, but yeah. I think he throws a beautiful ball. But
what is while we're on the subject, what is your one thing of either free agency or the rest of the offseason that you're waiting for it to be an absolute, home run of an offseason? Is it quarterback as well?
Well, no, I mean, obviously, I think that's anyone who follows the Vikings, it's quarterback. When it comes to free agency, it's the D line, and then figuring out that left guard spot, whether it's bringing Reisner back, which it sounds like they haven't even had conversations with him, where I don't get it, because he played well. You even traded a guy who went and got paid, overpaid, in Ezra Cleveland, but is Brandell going to be that guy? And then the fact that we only have Harrison Phillips up front, that's a viable starter. So again, bringing all those linebackers is great, but if you don't have big guys up front that can protect them, we're just going to get run on by teams. And yeah, so the trenches are where we need for me to be happy. That's what I would like to see money spent.
Yeah, I am in agreement that quarterback is, I don't think we even have to say it anymore after Kirk walked. But at this time last year, the Vikings had 9 defensive tackles on the roster, and now they have 3. And so there's going to be a bunch of them coming, whether it's from the draft, the undrafted free agency, regular free agency. But for me to get super excited about even this season with Sam Darnold, if they can sign Eric Armstead, who crossed paths with Kwesi Adofo-Mensah in San Francisco, He's played for the 49ers since 2015, since Kendricks and Hunter were drafted. I would take Eric Armstead in a minute, and then you'd have a defensive line of Andrew Van Ginkel, Eric Armstead, Harrison Phillips, and Jonathan Greenard, and that can get to the quarterback. Let me tell you what. So Eric Armstead is the guy that I want. Also, if he comes back and plays again, Calais Campbell just never declines. That guy is a machine. He's been around since 2008, and every single year he's productive. And I don't know if he wants to come to the Vikings, who are probably going to have a rookie quarterback, but he's an example of they're getting kind of slim pickings right now for free agent defensive tackles. But I want one who's not just Shamar Stephen, not just Armin Watts, not just Jonathan Bullard. I want somebody finally to realize you can sign a guy who's good at this position. Like nobody ever since Sharif Floyd 10 years ago have they realized that you can do that. It's allowed. And so I want them to sign an impact defensive tackle.
And there's a lot of, I don't know how much deep dive into the draft you've done, but there's a lot of really good, either 3-4 ends or defensive tackles in the draft. Like, obviously the big sweat guy out of Texas, Tavondre Sweat or whatever his name is. Chris Jenkins, who Bryant, you probably went up against his dad, Chris Jenkins with Carolina all those years ago. The Fisk guy from Florida State. There's that Robinson guy from Missouri. So there's a bunch of versatile players, which is again why getting rid of 42, you're losing out on one of those players as well. So so you can tell my excitement on trading all these draft picks. But
Bryant, we'll end with you. What's this Vikings offseason is trending well. 3 new defensive starters, a new running back, a bridge quarterback, the 11th pick. What do you want to see them do the rest of these couple months here?
Well, yeah, definitely figure out the quarterback situation. I think they went got a good running back just in case the quarterback might be slow to develop. They have a good run game, a decent run game. But yeah, I'm just interested to see who's basically going to be at the helm.
Yeah, I think that. Well, I know it's going to be I swear to God, all of us, when we sit down on April 25th, it's going to feel like a Super Bowl for us in terms of the excitement, trying to figure out who it is. Because I don't think we're going to know unless the Vikings have already traded up and they have the number 2 pick or something. We're not going to know who it is. And we'll all have that sideways paranoia that they're just not going to draft one, just out of sheer paranoia's sake. But yeah, figuring out if it's McKay or McCarthy, May, Penix, whoever it is, I can't imagine the pins and needles if you follow this stuff obsessively like most of us do. Sal,
can you imagine if Kwesi trades back?
If he has May on the board or something? Oh my God. Even I'll revolt.
I mean, again, personally, I'm all for just moving back and stockpiling picks. But yeah, I imagine what it would be like at TCO, the fan reaction if they stand pat and then trade back.
Oh yeah. If they have, I can understand it if it's only Penix and Bo Nix. I'll actually probably advocate for it. I would advocate for it. But if it's somehow McCarthy or Drake May at 11, and we see, hey, the so and so's are on the board, the Vikings have traded out. It'll feel heartbreaking. So, Sally, did you have one more thing to say?
No, I was just praying.
Oh, okay. You can't get your
you need a new candle.
Yeah, I was just praying.
I know you have, and you got 6 weeks to do your homework. Do you have any quarterbacks that you've circled, or not quite yet?
No, I have done. I thought for sure that they're going to stick with Kirk again. So I was not going to even invest 1 ounce of energy in it because I have to minimize my mood here. But yeah, I'm thrilled, and I will be doing all the research.
Then I start. Caleb Williams probably not available, but for Raun and I's sake, we're going to tell you to start with Drake May and then do an immediate pivot to JJ McCarthy. In terms of availability, Jaden Daniels would be awesome too, but I'm almost certain he's going to the Commanders. So, all right, will the group be available in 2 weeks?
I'm never missing a show again.
Your embargo is over. All right, guys, we'll talk to you in 2 weeks, which means we'll be a month away from the draft at that point. All right.
Okay.
Can't wait.
All right, later. Skol, baby.